Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on and behind the lines, this is your song.
Buy things at here websites.com.
Smooth. All right, thanks. Welcome to our Daily Gun Show. We're going to be live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for an hour. Sorry for the late start. We were chatting offline here, or off air here for a bit. I didn't realize how long we were chatting. We've got Clover joining us. Thanks for jumping in.
Hey, thanks for the invite.
Yep. So working on the 2A patch batch for the Gun Channel's live shows and starting the big 2A patch batch and Clover's in both of those. So we've been chatting offline, kind of prepping for that. Through the link out there, and there's a barbecue jumping in. I don't know if Walt's out there. He just sent me an email a while back. Got a couple of things we'll chat about. I guess I'll have to try it. I should probably keep a couple of notes here. Angelina was out there, and at first I was like, what's she talking about cheerleaders? Then I realized that I used the thumbnail from that movie. I forgot the name of that movie already, but I didn't like the movie. History of Violence. And Matt was talking about it, and I'm like, oh yeah. So it's this stupid movie. I don't understand why people like the movie. Have you guys seen History of Violence? It's like
I have not.
Nope.
It's like, here's the whole story. Mobster guy moves to a town and lives in some house, like a farmhouse. And then, like, you know how when city people think how the country is? It's like that kind of house. Like every house is just in the middle of a farm, but it's not part of the farm, right? Like that's how the country is. Your house is always just in the middle of some farm, but it's not the farm. It's just some house. And then I forget what happens. The mobsters figure out he lives there, so they go wail on him. It's like a dumb movie. But right in the middle of it, or at some point, and they're kind of old. Like the people in it are old. Like older than me, I think. I don't know. They're pretty old. Their kids are like in high school. And yeah, there's just this weird scene where the wife comes up with a cheerleader outfit and they go at it. Sort of like turns into a porn for 30 seconds in the middle of the movie. And I totally forgot about that. So use that thumbnail. Well, I used the PG version of that thumbnail for the show today. So with that, yeah, we sent a link out there. And people can jump in if they want. It is episode 1111, so it's pretty special. We took all the ones, we put them together, and we made this episode out of them. So that means 1,000, and then 100, and then 11 times we've done this show. And on Mondays, we usually talk about Second Amendment stuff, so I guess it makes sense to talk about the 2A patch batches. We got the one going at the moment. Oh, thanks for that. We got the one going at the moment for the Gun Channel's live shows. Kind of started off talking about that. And it's really going to be a nail biter, right? I think it's about a 30% funded or something right now, with 4 days to go, probably 3 days to go by the time this show's over. And we'll see how that one goes. And then there's the big 2A patch batch 2020. Are getting ready to go live, and we'll have some, well, I'm still working on a state level organization, but then we'll have some national level projects on there, groups, and some pretty heavy hitters. So it's going to be a great project, and that one will be like the last year's, where we end up with hundreds of patches made for everybody, and all the projects involved will come out with 100 each. And if they're interested, the insight from others who have done merch or done sales of things, or Patreon, or projects like Indiegogo crowdfunding projects, to give them some insight into the ways that they can use those resources, so that as capitalists and as people who are, in a free market, we can, master those skills, or at least learn some of those other skills, right? I've been chatting for a while, so I'll shut up. Looks like I didn't even get anything to drink for the show, and let these guys chat for a bit, and then we can start digging into some topics.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about with the patch batch. I mean, where you think, I mean, the 2A patch batch anyway, where you think that where you would go with it. I mean, the key to all of this, and it's what a lot of people don't realize, and it's something that I've focused on, just about since day one. I mean, if you've heard the story of how Ghost and I met, for example, and all of that, I mean, it's all branching out and being a part of the community and networking and all of that stuff. And when you reach out like that and you become part of the community, then, it's kind of like the old saying that the rising tide raises all ships or whatever. I don't know, something like that, right? It's late for me, but yeah, it's one of those things when you have that community and that support structure in play, because there are times that you need something, and somebody may have a specific set of skills, not to quote Liam Neeson there, but it's true. I mean, you think, oh man, I had that tonight, for example. I was like, I really, would like to get so-and-so on the podcast, but I'm not real sure how to get in touch with them, this, that, and the other. And so it's like, snap, I need to call this guy, or I need to email this guy and ask them, because this guy knows that person. And so, yeah, I mean, it's when you really start to make things happen. I mean, nobody can, I don't want to say nobody can take on the banner themselves, but it's one of them situations where nobody has to take on the banner themselves. I mean, they really don't.
Well, and then what good would it be? Because nobody's got the voice for to reach everybody. And
yeah, exactly.
Nobody's got the endurance to do it.
Mm-hmm. Great point.
You never know when somebody's going to fall off a cliff or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. No, absolutely. I mean, look, you never know. I mean, like Frank DeSalma, right, from POF, awesome dude, man, and it was a car accident. You never know. So yeah, I mean, that's true. And then it's an ever evolving thing too, and it's not just that, but I mean, people grow and move along in life and everything else. Their position in life changes. I mean. And that's why you have to constantly have that turnover. And that's where, I don't mind, I love, having the connections, the community connections and everything with some of the smaller players, because, it's like, I use Ghost for an example again, man. He's not really small anymore. But it's one of them things to where, that's, I don't know how to put it, but it's one of the things to where, bringing people like that into the fold and working with people like that can motivate them, can inspire them. I'm not real sure what the word is to keep going, like you said, in the times where maybe they're at a crossroads and trying to figure out what they want to do or what they need to do. And, if nobody's really paying attention and nobody really cares, well, that's not worth a crap. And that's one less voice that we have.
No, something we're talking 2A, but we also on Mondays typically talk. Is my fan's too loud? It sounds like it's super loud. Can you hear me all right?
It's not terrible.
Okay, we got like every fan in the house going. So one of the things we talked about on Mondays was creating a channel or doing behind the scenes stuff or content creation. Yep. Well, talked about the fans, and I totally forgot what the hell I was going to say.
Noise canceling microphones.
No.
Okay.
I was thinking about how to make a channel, but I guess I was going to say something bigger. We haven't talked in a while, but about the direction of what's next, right? So, big scale, we start with talking to each other, cave paintings, pictures, eventually books, paper, and letters, and being able to write to each other and keep messages, leave something, a note to your kids or your grandkids even, so knowledge can get handed down, books get more accessible, newspapers, magazines, radio, television, cable. Then you get internet, and then we get smartphones, and then high-speed internet, smartphones, and whatever's going to be next, right? So when we've talked about this kind of topic in the past, at least Clover and I, we've looked at things and kind of talked about the idea of the lifespan, I guess, maybe, of the platforms. If you think of just the internet, if you think of back in the AOL days and the MySpace, those have come and gone, and there's got to be some sort of lifespan for like the YouTubes and the Facebooks. So without rehashing that exact same topic again, the what's next, regardless of the details, is the what next platform based where people participate in a structure, or is it individual based? Pre YouTube, when you came online and you figured, like between AOL and YouTube, and between AOL and Facebook, really, there was a time when you kind of broke free of AOL as an online user, as an internet user. You were like, okay, I figured out that my modem gets me to the internet, and I don't got to walk through AOL, which is sort of like a big mall, to go to the store. I don't have to go to AOL. Instead, I can just go to the streets. And if I know the address, I can go straight to the store, or I can go to some other mall, or I can go to the movies. I can go do what I want online. I don't have to go to the AOL and then navigate inside of AOL to the different things that it chooses to show me. Right. So then we all went to the internet, and we all got our own emails, and we all figured out our own websites. And that's when stores and businesses all figured out their own websites. They weren't trying to be a part of AOL. They were trying to have their own .com. And then at some point, Facebook came along. And I think the tendencies of humans, right, is to gather and to organize and blah, blah, blah. So Facebook gave us some tools, like gave you some tools, I don't use it, to talk, basically old emulated tools off of AOL, chatting and texting and emails. But they put it in a familiar package, and then they just hit at the right time, where a whole bunch of kids were using it because it was there. And then their parents started using it because their kids were using it. And then the kids moved on, and the parents kept using it. And then it became used by businesses, and then it was established. And then they figured out how to make money on it, and it's there. So with that kind of, if I'm correct on that, like bird's eye view of everything, there was a minute there where everybody was sort of on their own online. Is that what we got next? Or is it going to be, an evolved Facebook or a next version of Facebook? And I'll throw that out to everybody because the link is out there. I'll throw the link out there again, but I'll shut up and let you guys.
I don't know. I think about it, and I don't know where the next evolution is going, because we're all over the place right now. It's weird. It's like technology threw up. You know what I'm saying? Literally right now. It's literally like technology has just thrown up all over the place. So it's like
when you got a whip or something, right? It's like it's on its kickback. Like it's not we don't know we're going somewhere, and we're not.
There's all of this potential. You're right. It's like all this potential and built up energy or something. You're right. It's like the recoil, I guess, or whatever, or whatever of a whip. Yeah. I would agree with that analogy. It's weird. We've definitely seen, especially with, look at what's gone on right in the country the last few months or whatever. You've got like movie theaters, dude. Movie theaters are done, and so they've been done for years. It's just there never was a push, right? There never was a final nail in the coffin, and so with the movie theater shut down, Amazon said, oh, okay, well, what we want to do is we're going to take this new Trolls movie that they knew was going to be this huge hit because the first one was, right? All the kids were going to scream, yell, and want to watch it, right? So, they like, okay, so what's the deal here? Okay, well, if we do this on demand, parents don't have to pay separate ticket fees for all their kids. They don't have to buy all the expensive popcorn and candies and drinks and everything else. They don't have to get them all cleaned up and put them in a car and drive into town and, deal with them on the ride home being cranky because they were up late or whatever the case may be. They can click a button right there in their own home. They can fix $2 microwave popcorn and they're done. and it broke records. They did that, and it broke records like the world has never seen before. And so that tells me that this whole, and even before that, the on demand thing, um, the on demand thing was something that was becoming really big, really popular. And it makes sense because look at society, look at the world, and we are creatures that crave that instant gratification, right? So where I'm going with this is whatever happens when that whip cracks, it's going to revolve around instant gratification of some sort. You know, we've got Instagram, and Instagram's a quick picture, and the tweets are short and simple and quick. And, you know, it's, you know, you get there, you get it, you get it instantly, you get the point across, and you get gone, right? And so I think that's where we're going. I just don't know what form it's going to take. And so here's the thing with that is I think that that's going to be a problem. kind of like written media, kind of like magazines and stuff. There were some that evolved into the online world fairly well, others not so much. And I think that's going to happen too when you've got, you know, podcasters, video creators, you know, different media like that that are used to, you know, the 4-hour live streams, the 45-minute review videos, the this, that, and the other, that's not going to cut it going forward. You're going to have to be able to bob and weave and get that information down to where you whittle out the meat, you leave the bones on the table, you know, and that's all you serve up. And whatever, like I said, whatever platform or whatever that platform looks like, I don't know, but it's all going to be about on demand. I want it now. I want it quick. Okay, I'm gone. On to something else.
You throw anything in there, barbecue?
I was gonna go the same route that CloverTech did with the instant gratification thing, but as to what in the world that could look like, I don't have a clue.
Well, Enrique is saying, personally, after working with our Chinese counterparts in marketing, Facebook will go tyrant and reflect the Chinese Wii version of Facebook. It's amazing, literally billions of users. So that's MeWe.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's what he's talking about. Not MeWe.
Oh, what's MeWe?
MeWe's an alternative social media. MeWe's been around for a long time, actually. So, and it's the gun streamer to, you know what I'm saying? To, whereas Facebook is YouTube. Yeah, basically.
Well, they use something called something like that, though. And it's way bigger than Facebook because there's so many more people over there.
And I say that maybe the Chinese do use MeWe, but you got to remember those platforms look very different in other countries too.
Well, yeah, the thing I've seen, they have a thing that's bigger than Facebook, more, but it's similar in the respects that like a chunk of the Chinese people are using it, like the way that a whole big chunk of people are using Facebook here. Like a lot of people are using it, and they're satisfied with it. But it's it's some like different format where it's more of what they say. It's like more of like Instagram mixed with email or something, and then there's like ratings or something. So yeah, they do it a little bit differently. And then, is there money in it? Like, do they pay everything through it now?
Through what? Through MeWe?
I might be mixing up apps, but one of the apps, or like over in other countries, they're getting to where they're getting rid of money, and some of these apps are facilitating that. Like they pay for stuff with their phone.
Yeah, well, and that leads into a possibility, right? Because everything is going mobile. It's all going to the phone, right? You do everything now. Heck, they're talking about voting from your phone, for goodness sake. So
I'm sure that's
is it that far of a leap? Here's the thing. Is it that far of a leap for there to be some type of a thing to where you subscribe via a text message to whatever content creator, and you receive that pushes out like directly to people's phones, and it's not even really a platform. And if it is, like the phone companies own that platform.
Yeah, see, exactly. So you're talking like whatever the equivalent that tech is for an RSS feed. And that's where you make a blog or you make a series of things. You attach a snippet of reference to them, a code or a hashtag, whatever you want to call it, because it doesn't matter, whatever the new system uses. You attach something to it that's basically a Dewey Decimal System, a way for it to be identified as a thing. And then, yeah, you push it sort of like a newsletter in a format like a group text, where if you're part, like kind of like what Discord is, I guess. That's Discord, really. Discord's just a little fancier version of what we're describing here. So is that the future, where everybody goes and hides on their own little Discord servers? And but again, that's weird. That's definitely a different way of everybody still talking. And then you'd have a weird, I don't know how to call that, like spider web of people that are in this Discord server and that Discord server, but so information isn't there. It's only available to people that are in both. People would have all kinds. That would be the craziest system to create, because the AI, the organizing thing that knows all the data, right? The processor that holds all those databases, that holds all that info, because everything we do on social media platforms anywhere, it's just database. All
Right.
just putting stuff into a database. So something that runs all that database knows what's happening in every conversation in every room, but only humans would only know what's happening in front of them. And if they jump from room to room and read, they'd know what's happening in 2 rooms. But the system would always know what's happening everywhere, and it would know who's aware of what. So talk about being able to be manipulated. If you knew that apples were red and you knew that there was 6 apples, then it knew everything else. Then who's going to win that game?
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. So that went around, and I wanted to let you guys chime in. I guess my thing was, I was going to say something back to where Clover was talking. I guess you were thinking more of along the lines of like what we've been doing. I guess what I'm thinking, or what I was trying to get to, was looking at it where we're looking at this stuff as older people, as people who experienced life before gizmos and gadgets. And then we experienced all the kind of steps and baby steps of gizmos and gadgets. And then now, what we've got. But there's whatever this generation is that's voting for the first time this year, who's never lived without a cell phone. Like their Atari 2600, their Pong is, I don't know, Angry Birds or something. Like their stuff is like yesterday, like stuff that just barely happened. So they got a whole different set of reference. And that's why I'm thinking even Facebook is an electronic version of what we all were aware of, either through movies or social, whatever, like Facebook is some version of like a building with a courtyard, let's say. But if you are born on a spaceship, what do you care about a building with a courtyard? Is that the way to say it? Like if
Yeah,
you're
a little
being
bit.
born, now, like it's like Waterworld. Like, what we're trying to build a city with grass and trees because we remember what the continents were like. But if you're born in the water, what do you care about trees? Like, you're not going to waste all the time. You're just going to do Waterworld stuff. So I'm thinking the next platforms could be just different because they're not trying to think of something that, whatever. I can just read, going back in what do you call it, in circles here. But
Well, that's why I say I don't think with all the avalanche, let's say, of technology that younger people have been through, they're not platform centric, and they're not loyal to platforms, right? They'll jump on the newest one. They'll move along and progress along. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think the future is going to be, it may be device centric, but I don't think it's going to be platform centric.
well, and that's the other thing, is we're using things based off of phones, which are based off of phones, which are based off of phones. Right? Like wall phones turned into cordless phones, I guess, that looked like a wall phone because they weren't going to make it look like a tricorder yet, and then
Right.
our cell phones barely, like if you took a smartphone and a wall phone or a smartphone back to 1980 and gave it to somebody, they'd look at you funny. Like, why are you giving me a glass? Like, where's the rest of this? You know what I mean? Like,
One of the things I was wondering was, do we see individual platforms pop up like the gun communities getting GunTube, GunStreamer? Do we see things like, for art, and they have their own streaming service now or whatever, and it's all dedicated to art, and people that are just love shopping, it's all dedicated to shopping, and and it kind of does away with the YouTube. And when you go to these places, that you're going there, and the only thing you're going to find there has to deal with what you're looking for.
Yep. I think that's a possibility. And that's sort of what I was going to get to. So let me finish that with the answer in here. So I think there's lots of cycles. And one of the cycles is, when I look back at we got the 2000s, then we got the 90s, and then you got the 80s and the 70s and the 60s. So in the 70s, when I was growing up, everybody was like, I'm going to try this, or I'm going to build this myself, or like, if I need bookshelves, I'm going to make them. There's Popular Mechanics had the how-to sections, and, people were putting together kits. And I don't know if that was a function of there just wasn't stuff, or if it was a function of, that was still an interest, it's part of it. Like, I want to build this thing. I want to see how it's made. And then I want to have one that I built, as opposed to, there was not as much value in having one of a billion. I don't know why, I just know that things were sort of done. And then we got into the 80s, and there was sort of a different trend, like a different appetite or whatever, taste, and all of a sudden it's kind of the transistor radio and stuff. It's like, oh, it's kind of cooler to have this transistor radio than that ham kit or whatever that you had to solder together. This thing's small and plastic, and then there was value added to this mass produced stuff. And then I've been watching things about how toys made us, and the story of Star Wars figures and stuff, and those things are super interesting. But what we see there is, again, like this appeal of the mass market, like factory stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if it's necessarily black and white or goes from loud to quiet every time, but, there's a fluctuation. And then for a while I was out of it. I was in the Army, I was doing stuff, living my life. So I don't know if it went the other way or not, but I know that what we're seeing in the last few years is the lumberjack looking people that are like, I'm going to weave my own version of this, or I'm going to grind my own coffee, or I'm gonna, there's this more like, I'm gonna use my own laser printer to cut this, or to make my own 3D printer to make this. So we're seeing this like maybe a long cycle, or maybe I missed one of the loops in there. But if the next trend or the next appetite or the next value is placed on what you can create, and I hope that this is the next, because I really would like to see a future world where we're not like valuing Walmart and mass production, but instead worrying about what like cheese tastes like here or wine tastes like there, and either using Amazon or traveling, but then actually valuing all the differences in this planet, right? And appreciating them and whatnot. And that's where I could see the next platforms where they would flee from like a Facebook. I don't want to be on Facebook. I don't want to be a boring thing there. I want to go back to like, and I'm hoping with the future they're saying, I want to have my own website. And then that would lead to a barbecue saying like, then if you're like gardening, then you're going to have your own thing. And it's not going to be like Facebook, because you're going to want to share gardens, and you're going to want to share things like on a, like a Farmer's Almanac type of schedule, not on a Facebook events type of schedule. But now if you're a person who travels, then maybe you want to join something that's all about figuring out your itineraries with other people or something, and some hybrid platform that's appropriate for what you're doing. And if you're into cars or something, something different. If you're into pets, everything, platforms that are specific. So I'm hoping, but that's my preference for the future.
Right. Yeah.
I
That's,
guess in a way we kind of describe like forums and then moving into the space of YouTube.
Well, forums, there was definitely a time there between AOL and, well, during MySpace, kind of before YouTube for sure, where the forums were the king. But the forums problem was the internet was still baby, and nobody had consistent internet. There was dial-up, there was high speed, and everything in between all at the same time. And that's really difficult for a person who's creating a platform or some kind of consistency, because the people that are high speed got no time to wait around for the people that are dial up, and they don't even know they're wasting everybody's time. So there's a lot of, so the forums kind of worked for that, and people were figuring out the internet. The people who are first people on the internet are a certain demographic, so it worked for all that. But going forward, I think that you've got new internet, different tools and abilities of the platform, just the internet itself. So you can have apps, and you can have all kinds of powerful websites compared to before. So I think yes, in as far as like topics, but I just don't think they have to be forums anymore. And I mean, some things forums work out great, but other things like a forum would be hindering, right? It would be not the best, whatever. Like if you wanted to have a calendar, a forum's not the best functionality for a calendar.
Mhm. Yeah, but again, I think it's going to be, with any of that. I mean, if you've got these diverse pockets of communities or whatever, like you're talking about, I think it's going to be one of them situations where it's like it's a feed to your device. It's kind of like now you can pick your package, right? You've got your Hulu's, your Netflix, your satellite did that back in the day, satellite TV, cable packages, whatever. It's going to be a thing to where, okay, well, I'm into gardening and I'm into race cars. So feed me this and feed me this to my device,
Like the bundles or whatever back in the day, and you get like
in a way. Yeah. In a way.
sports channels or the outdoor
Yeah.
channel.
And like I said, I don't know what the device is going to look like. It may be built into a pair of glasses. It may be, some weird
Well, going forward, when we
hat
got
that you wear, who knows?
as AI keeps developing, right? Like we're going to have little assistants that do more and more. So, yeah, if like I'm into, I don't know, Chevy V8 engines or whatever, some specific type of thing, then I don't need to go on Google and figure out where it's at, right? You'll have your little R2D2 bring everything to you. It knows what you like. Or if you're like, hey, I need to know about something I'm not into, like it'll go do that for you.
They already do it. They already do that now, right? I mean,
yeah, it'll be universal translate.
I did. I looked up. Of course, I talked about it first, but I talked about one of the silicone, wedding bands or whatever, and then I looked up like a couple on the internet, and then for 3 days, that's all I seen. Wherever I, was 18 bazillion companies that were trying to sell me, So imagine that in a sense of it feeding you information that it knows you want, right? It knows you like this information, so it's going to feed you. It's going to say, hey, here's this group, here's the feed from this group, here's the feed from this website, here's the feed from this forum, here's the feed from, well, here's a video for this, right?
Yeah, or like, hey, I noticed that like so and so watched this video and commented on it. You want to watch it? Or hey, I saw that whatever your kid got this assigned at school. Do you want to watch a video about that topic or something? Like, yeah, they'll be your ally, but a bigger aware, like a search engine or something.
Yeah,
so like,
right. Kind of like what was that? Starship Troopers. Want to know more? Yeah.
Yeah, but in Starship Troopers, they only knew what they knew, so they didn't realize AI. But
yeah, well, I'm just saying, when it would tell you something, and it would go, want to know more? It'd be something like that. It throws you something in a feed that's like the newest V8 engine in the Bronco. Want to know more? And then you're like, yes, and then it feeds it to your device or whatever. Because I think, like I said, it's this instant. We talked about this instant gratification thing, right? And I don't know that I like this idea. This is just my brain, my brain working. But everybody wants the instant gratification. They want it yesterday. They want it yesterday. Well, on demand, it's about as freaking fast as you're going to get it, unless you have it fed to you, right? That's the only thing that can be faster, is for you to actually have it fed to you rather than on demand. But in order to feed it to you, there has to be algorithms and, like you said, some type of an assistant that keeps track of stuff, and that's a whole other scary ball of wax. But there has to be something else going on that tracks and keeps track of things and whatever to be able to feed you that. And then you don't even have to ask for it on demand.
Now, is it possible that this whole like getting online together and meeting people, I don't know, I'm going to say, it's not exactly the same, but it's, in a way, it's like pen pals. Do you remember what pen pals are? I don't know if I might be saying something that other people don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Yep.
But if these are like pen pals or Model UN, or what the hell was it called? There was something else when we were kids where you would send your kid to some other country and they would send you some other kid. And then for like a year, you lived with them.
Foreign exchange or whatever.
Foreign exchange, yeah. So, that's neat or whatever. And then you go, well, I'm done with that. Like, I've done that. Now I'm going to go back to having my own kid at my house or whatever, right? And then, is it possible that we're all going to kind of get used to this as a race, and then, or not a race, I guess, as a species, and then be like, it wasn't all that great. It led to a bunch of confusion and manipulation. Maybe, is it possible it goes to, I don't want to use that social score that China has, like they have some kind of social score, right? Where somebody can give you a demerit or something. Right. But something more of a capitalist version of that, where like a eBay reputation thing that you get, where, like, just like when you're maybe in the military, you get ribbons for doing campaigns and achievements and stuff. If you're in other organizations, you get some sort of, acknowledgement or whatever for reaching different levels. What if it goes to more of something like where you have this electronic ally or whatever, and that keeps track of your LinkedIn resume, so to speak, and then instead of being on Facebook and stuff, what if the whole world just kind of gets sick of that and then uses the tech that we've got when we need it, but it's more like, humans are just, I don't know, can you even imagine what it was like before everybody? I certainly can't, because I'm online every day, but like before everybody was online, I'll go out now especially and see people that aren't talking on their phone as much anymore, or like, every once in a while I'll meet somebody who doesn't go online very often or whatever. So what if we all decided to quit going online because it's the novelty is worn off, and then it's more of like, all this stuff is here when we need it, but we don't use it that much because somehow there's like more value placed on either hanging out and minding your business, hanging out with people or traveling.
There's some validity to that, because the whole idea, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the whole idea of modernization and technology and all of that, isn't that supposed to free up time to do other things? And it seems like rather than freeing up time for us to be artists or for us to go for a walk or smell the roses, it seems like it's gotten to a point, or at least it did, where people are just consuming more technology, which is weird. It's like it defeats the purpose.
Well, I don't know. I was going to say it is, but it isn't, because you get like an appetite and then you finish. But I was going to say maybe like with video games, but pretty much the video game appetite has been insatiable. The movie or the video appetite has been insatiable. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is just inevitable that it goes the other way. Maybe it just goes until we get it in our eyeballs or our glasses or some kind of implant. It's just part of us, and you don't have to spend your time on the Instagram because Instagram is just there all the time.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, look at the Great Depression, right? What thrived? Gambling, drinking, speakeasy, sports, Hollywood, music, entertainment, right? And so, that's one of them things where, people crave to be entertained. And so, when they find entertainment, I guess it's people crave entertainment. And once upon a time, it was more difficult to get that entertainment, right? I mean, you had to entertain yourself, right? It was more difficult to get that entertainment. But now, again, with the flood of technology and stuff, I mean, your life can totally be consumed with just being entertained, and you would get nothing productive done.
But the level or whatever, like the quality or the level, I guess, the sophistication of the entertainment changes, right? Because at one time,
It's true.
puppets were entertaining, and then like just dumbass shit was entertaining throughout the years, and things evolve or whatever. And I don't know, sometimes it happens to me where I'll be, especially in like somebody's chat, like Matt's chat or something, where we just got a lot of people in there, and it's like, damn, we all have way too much knowledge of like pop culture. You think of like something like a Star Trek or a Seinfeld or a big news thing, or something big like the moon landing or something. Like we just all know some stuff, right? And or certain things. Like at some point, yeah, you just get sick of that and you value the opposite of that, or there's just too much. Like it worked when we all knew Seinfeld, because for a while there, Seinfeld was all it was on Thursdays.
Right.
That was that world. But can there ever be another Seinfeld? And right now there's like the Rick and Morty, right? Like a shit ton of people know. I've never even seen it. I mean, I've seen
Me neither.
minutes of that show, but like South Park, except for like whenever it happens in front of me, I never sought out that show and never watched it. But you know what I mean? Like at some point, there's just so many, even if they're awesome, even if I'm missing something good, you just don't have time or ability. And when you just get so many people plugged in, can there be things like that reach everybody anymore? And that's why I'm wondering, like, is it inevitable that we go away? And then at some point, it'll go back together again. Like at some point, people will feel desperate and they'll come, or disparate, whatever the word is, separate, and they'll come back together again. All right, so we got a bunch of people showing up. I don't know, probably because Clover's in here. Matt dropped a $20 super chat, so I guess they're drunk over doing something maybe. We're probably playing video games. They were in their chat earlier, and sometimes when that thing ends, they'll be in the after chat, and then they'll start playing video games or something.
Yeah, they're in the Discord, looks like.
Oh, yeah, so Discord, I'm not a big fan of that one. Definitely everybody's using it because basically it's, there's no nothing like that on YouTube. If YouTube would have put something like that in there, they're idiots. They went to that stupid G Plus, which was a horrible mess. They look like they really dropped the ball not having something like that. Why do you think? Well, we know why. Because Discord is made for video games, right? It was
Sure.
just designed for the kids playing a game that don't have. It must be for when they don't have the ability to talk to each other on the game.
Well, I can tell you this about YouTube. YouTube is like super bloated and has a ton of features that require a ton of resources and upkeep and code work and monitoring and policing and everything else already. So, adding other dimensions, I mean, I'm sure that comes into play with YouTube.
But I'm just saying, I'm thinking back to when we put together Gun Challenge was because of the stupid Google Plus or G Plus.
Right.
And at that time, they definitely put all this stupid resource and effort into something that they didn't need to do. I'm just saying if they would have been, I don't know if it would have worked back then. I'm guessing it would have.
Well, now you've got the community tab, but nobody hardly uses the community tab. The community tab is essentially a Facebook feed, but nobody uses it.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So we're talking on Mondays about how to do channel stuff. So one of the things I've been doing for a while now, actually a long time, is whenever I go to YouTube, you can either go to your channel or go to your subscriptions or something, some part of your interface with YouTube. So usually I'm either going to go in there and go to my subscriptions. So I see who either posted something recently or is about to post something that I'm subscribed to, right? And then the other option is to go in there and click on the YouTube icon at the top left, and then it just takes you to effectively the front page of YouTube.
Mhm.
And if you don't do anything, it's going to show you what it thinks you want, right? Working on, hey, jump in here if you want, Walt. You should probably talk to Clover if you haven't. And then I need to get you to talk to another guy. And we're going to talk about something else here if we get a chance. Is it 11 yet? Oh, so we got an hour. Walt can usually stay until 11. Yep, totally lost where I was at. I was right in the middle of a sentence too.
You were talking about how you get your home feed. You said you were getting.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. So yeah, I started screwing with it. So I go to the click on YouTube. It shows me the front page of YouTube. But since at the beginning, it was showing me what I thought I wanted, right? And it was like your guys' stuff or whatever.
Sure.
So then I started saying, don't show me this channel. Don't show me this channel. If you don't click on your subscriptions, it doesn't show you people you know. It just shows you things it thinks you might like. So first off, a bunch of people I hate on YouTube. That was easy. Don't fucking show me this guy. I don't like him, right? Like people in the gun community, I don't like. Don't show me this channel. Don't show me this channel. So now it starts desperate. I don't know what to show this guy. So it just started showing me like a train or like something like a omelet or whatever. And it was neat. And I was finding all kinds of interesting stuff that wasn't have anything to do with nothing. It was just like amazingly cool stuff. And I'm seeing how the channels are huge and how they're doing their thing and how long they've been around. You know, I can't look at a YouTube channel without dissecting it. So, man, I've been going through all kinds of neat stuff. And then now, intentionally, even if I really enjoy a channel, I've got multiple YouTube channels. So if I really like something, I can just go leave it on my other channels so I can still find it. But even if I really like something, I like a neat DIY channel or just something I never knew was awesome, I'll say, don't show me this again. And it just keeps showing me, like, it just keeps showing me the randomest stuff. And I've been really, really, really enjoying that and finding all kinds of interesting stuff. And YouTube, YouTube is big. You know this country's big. But it would be like if you decided to take a road trip and every day you stopped, you were going to go like 4 addresses down and talk to that person. You know, if you stopped at a hotel or if you stopped at a restaurant, you're going to go down 4 addresses. And if it's a fish shop or if it's a tuxedo store, you're going to go in there and talk to that person. You're going to get, that kind of weird, just, what is that? Eclectic, random. It's just, YouTube is massive. And every time I dig into one of these channels that I like, I don't dig into every channel no matter what, but if I find a channel that's interesting, dig into it. Almost always there's a live version of whatever the hell topic. It's mostly DIY stuff that I find interesting. Yeah. But just the weirdest stuff. There's huge live chats going on about it. So it's just a massive platform.
Well, they're redo it. I don't know if you've kept up or paid attention, but they're going to be redoing some of the homepage stuff, and they're going to actually have make the live stream section a little better and more robust, so you can jump into, if your live stream is your thing, to be able to jump in, search, browse, live streams a lot easier. Which I find weird because they don't really like live streams, but. I don't know. They're going to put it in there. I guess they realize they're popular.
Yeah, and they're a big enough company that, I think they're. Well, I guess if they can look at trends and like they say, if there's an interest, they're not going to. Well, I guess sometimes they're going to deny it, but they're going to probably let it be explored a little bit. But yeah, they might just be figuring that it's a different. They might have figured out a different way to gather info or something.
I tell you why they're still playing the live stream game. I can tell you this with almost absolute certainty and you will know, you won't tell if you follow the channels I follow or that we normally follow that live stream and you look at super chats, you're probably not going to, but get into some of these just off the wall random live streams and look at the amount of super chats and know the percentage that YouTube pulls off of those. That's why they allow live streams still.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's big money.
It's only the money. It's all
the tool ones, the computer ones, the cooking ones, the craft ones,
dude.
The computer ones. Those people are selling the hell out of stuff. Like they are doing just crazy, insane. Like us over here in the gun community are a bunch of like FUDs, basically.
Right.
We're not doing nothing. We're like the same old. And there's like crazy things happen in some of these chats. And I get bored. Like, I'm depressed. Like, I don't want to watch this anymore because all these people, there's like 700 people talking about Harbor Freight power tools live. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And he's like talking about the, like basically unboxing power tools from Harbor Freight. It's interesting. Don't get me wrong. Like, having somebody who knows let you know like which of the Harbor Freight tools are equivalent to Makita or something, like that's valuable. I guess that's worth knowing, especially if you're in the biz, right?
Right.
Like, gives you a lot of money. It's I'm not shitting. That's just that, holy crap, there's a lot of live stuff. So anyway, the Pete said here, Discord is kind of like cancer on your PC unless your entire life is the online stuff and you don't work, right? And that's sort of the thing, is any of these live conversations can be, time sucks, right? And if it's valuable, constructive, then great. Even if it's adding, contributing. That's my problem with Discord. I don't have a problem with people communicating and having fun and just bullshitting or whatever. But if it happens in a forum, at least it's available to the world. So if you're going to spend 50 hours in a certain amount, some amount of time, you're going to spend 50 hours together collaborating on a project or a review of a movie or whatever. It doesn't all have to be brain surgery, but holy shit, why do that in a fucking hole and cover it and hide it and lock it unless it's private? Like, what's the point of spending all that time not sharing that with the rest of everybody?
So so answer me this about Discord, right? Because I'll tell you, I use Discord for temporary contact more than anything anyway. So for me right now, I'm using it to share stuff, like when people's live, I'll throw it over there. When I'm live, when I release a video and somebody else releases a video, kind of like, okay, this will help with notifications because there's a lot of people over there. But I'm scrolling back through my feed. At what point does it disappear on Discord? Because I'm scrolling back all the way to when I first started my Discord, and I still see everything posted. So,
no, it'll all be there, I think, until you delete it or something.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's hidden. It's just that unless you have a key to go in there, no one's ever going to see the stuff you're laying.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's what's frustrating. That's what's ultimately frustrating, because it's designed, it's set up so that, hey, build a server and start putting rooms in it, and then start inviting people in and giving them mod status, and it's a forum, right? And forums are awesome. You go search for something like, what's the right magazine for this for this rifle, and you go find that on a forum. You do all that in Discord, you just wasted everybody's time. Unless you got
it's not searchable. Is what you're saying?
It's useless. Yeah, it's just, and think about it. Again, if you're like trying to piss people off or like trying to make all their life seem futile, like have them put all their effort into something that you can just go, thanks, and turn the light off and close the door. Like, you just spent your entire life setting up that info and I just turned it off.
Right.
Anyway,
right. Well, I use it for the temporary, so it's not, it's not that big of a deal.
Well, but okay. So No Drop thinks it's responsible for the flood. The more and more people that use something just as a time consume, just as a, what's the word, like a stopgap, then it becomes established and there's no other.
But it's not a stopgap. That's what I'm telling you. I don't put anything on Discord that's not put elsewhere that's going to be archived.
Well, you're not, but I'm just saying, if enough people are all like, well, I'll just start using this as a shelf.
No, I feel you. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I totally get it.
So let's see, we got Walt in here. This is my speaker. Aren't too bad.
I don't know if you can hear me. I'm using like iPod headphones right now, so it's kind of a.
Well, I got my thing on, so I do hear you. But if you've been saying stuff, sorry, we're just.
Oh no, I was muted for a minute there, but I just thought I'd come in and say, hey, I freaking love Discord. I love it for everything, all kinds of purposes. But I also really like direct communication, face to face. So that's how I use it too. So I know everybody's got different things. So like a lot of temporary contact, or I just need to talk to someone, or whatever, but the topic of the month, all that type of stuff, it's great in Discord. Just pin a message if it needs to stay there for a long time, good to go. But that's me. I mean, different strokes.
So anyway, so we've got other stuff. So first off, you did a video that was on an aspect of I guess, what do you call it, like a type of argument that's worth talking about. but then what? Your last video was more about. Wait a minute. Was your no? It was the one I'm thinking about. The one about consequentialism or whatever.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
That was your last one.
Yeah, that's the most recent. And then, yeah, I've been getting just so caught up in content plans that I've been, I've been a chicken with my head cut off on some of this stuff because it's taken a lot of research and a lot of effort to write. But yeah, it's been.
Well, the topic itself is interesting. The way you hit them by taking like 7 stabs at it or whatever, 7 things or whatever. That's cool. One of your ones was about suicide being. Was one of your ones was about suicide, or am I mixing 2 of them up?
That one is coming up, so I'm going to do one on that. And I realized I should correct the record. I did misspeak. I got really excited when I saw a study that I just glanced at, and without doing my homework, so I embarrassed myself. What I found was that basically that study I found that on suicide, so just reviewing that, it became pretty clear that if you could address food stamps by increasing food stamps to 4.5% more of the population, that would reduce suicides by about 36,000.
Wow.
And I thought it was a year. That was over a 15-year period. So instead of being a 50% drop, it's closer to like a 5%, 10% drop. So I'm going to drop a video making a full correction on that. But I'm also, at the same time, I'm going to be doing a video on here's all of the different policies you could do that are pennies on the dollar or would require just like a modicum of time and effort without really any significant cost increase that would actually significantly address the quote unquote gun violence. They'll address pretty much all violence, not just gun violence, but you'll hit that as a tertiary effect. And so far, I'm at a theoretical 80% of gun violence down with what I'm doing. I'm still doing research on that one because there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat here, and nothing's 100%. The reasoning here is a little bit flawed, but basically it just shows the potential of what we could do without even touching gun rights at all. So just a few social programs, changing how we police a little bit, giving doctors some more resources, stuff like that. It gets pretty crazy. So that's my current project.
Right on. Well, you don't have to. I mean, dig in as much as you want. Obviously, it's your thing to dig into, but you don't need. I don't think any individual needs to have the answers as much as I like the concept that angle is. I don't think I've seen it addressed before, and I thought a good person to have you chat with would be Mike from Walk the Talk America. Have you heard of that organization before?
I have not.
So you just talked about something earlier in the side chat about where you threw $5 at us. Thanks. Working on getting, and that's something else we'll chat about here. Working on getting this our thing up here. We are interested. We'll keep you posted on an outcome that they want to talk. So Clover is a non-Redditor. He's an anti-Redditor. The same way I don't like Discord. Well, not for the same reasons,
Gotcha.
but I'm not a big fan of Discord because I think it's a big shithole. He doesn't like Reddit because he thinks it's a big shithole for different reasons. And I'm speaking for him. But we've never been a big fan of Reddit just because I'm not a big Redditor either. I think it's weird and I just don't understand it. And he's had things with it. So we just never talked about it. But then Walt comes along and he's all about Reddit. He hangs out in there and stuff. So we were chatting and I was like, good, I'd like to know more about it from somebody who ain't, trying to stab me or something.
Right.
I'd like to know more if there's something useful there. And then we had a couple of decent chats. I think we had probably about 10 hours of chats already chatting about 2A stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And somewhere in there, I was like, hell, if you got more people from Reddit that want to join these things, then let's do it. So I think that's what you're talking about in the super chat is that there's people from Reddit who are interested in having a more structured show or something.
Yeah, and so what I did to that end was I basically just went in and I dropped an ad, and I got at least one response within, I think, about an hour or so when I dropped it today. Just kind of put a post up and said, hey, this is coming from GA Gun Websites, 160K subscriber. This guy's been in the game, right? He talks to people. He knows, pretty much everyone. He's got a big Rolodex.
Oh,
But
here,
let
let me
so
interrupt you. I'm good at interrupting people.
Go ahead.
When we were chatting one night, I came up with a new thing. So if the Second Amendment is an old bar, right? It's a bar in the Old West, like a saloon or whatever. So, at some point in 2005, I come up to this bar after, living in that town my whole life and understanding what the bar is all about. I've been wanting to work in that bar, right? So in 2005, I get a job, cleaning the spittoon and, grabbing stuff for people or running errands, the little kid in the saloon type of thing. And then we fast forward to 2020, and now I'm this old crotchety guy. Like, I'm still in the thing, but I'm not, I've done it, and I've played a lot of the different roles in the thing. I've sat at the poker table, I've been the bartender, I've worked in gun shops, done all these different things I have to tell you. So that's where I was kind of coming up with this analogy that at this point, people keep coming up, and it's like, imagine being that guy. Clover, in a lot of ways, is that same dude. He's a little bit different, but he's been around this whole time. So at some point, I was trying to tell Walt, you see cycles. You see, how many times do I see somebody come up and go, hot damn, I just learned about the Second Amendment, and it's ours to defend. And I'm interested, and what do I do? And then after a while, something happens, and then they're like, no, or maybe like even fuck you, like, who knows? Like, there's, something happens.
Right.
And sometimes it's like being at that bar, right? So, they come in, sometimes they're like the sheriff and they clean up, and sometimes, this town's better off, and you got the organizations that kick ass, right? And people that work together well and they accomplish things, and then you get fuckers, scoundrels that come in, crooked poker games and stuff happen, and just all kinds of different things have happened. Anyway, so I think that's where I was trying to act like I've been around and seen that and done that in these conversations and shitting on all his, new ideas and stuff, I do. So anyway, just interrupting Walt there to say that's where Walt went off, I guess, and talked to people on Reddit. And anyway, I didn't describe it well, but I'm digging this new analogy, because when I gave this one to Cheryl, I think she understood it too. I'm going to start using it more often to try to explain why I'm so crotchety about Second Amendment shit at this point. Anyway, sorry, I'll keep on.
But yeah, so they're, it's people that do want to engage, and I think it's people that are just kind of struggling to figure out how to unite with a lot more of what you consider kind of the traditional two-way community, right? Which is maybe a little bit to a lot right of center. These guys are, some of them straight up socialist, some of them just like a little bit more welfare than you, and that's about it. They're all over the political spectrum, and I think now in this day and age, it's a great time to be looking at those people and figuring out how to make out some kind of arrangement so that we can be united behind the issues, united behind candidates, and start really having those conversations, because I think that would give the two-way community just a lot of power. I think it just would be, broadly speaking, just a really good goal. And I think one of the other things too, and we see this a lot with the rhetoric nowadays on two-way, so much of it is fear-centric, because we have a fear of losing rights. Like if you talk about any of the anti-gunner groups, right, they have a fear of losing lives that they like to sell everyone on, right? We have a fear of losing our rights on our side. There's a whole bunch of things that people are just not willing to sit down and talk rationally about, or at least they'd like to, but they've forgotten how. And the conversation has just gotten so off track that, like, anything I can do to help bring that back, I think would be productive. And that's why I've been kind of devoting my efforts how I do. So.
Right on. So I was actually going to get with you at some point when I had a minute to ask you if you'd do some sort of chat where just give me your lay of the land of Reddit. We kind of explored it a little bit one night, but
I want in on that too.
Like a specific, somebody who's been there and isn't uncomfortable there, explaining what it's about would be cool.
Oh God, I'm still uncomfortable there. But Reddit's an interesting.
It actually makes me feel more comfortable, because the people I have had in the past that tell me, "Oh, I'm all about Reddit," like, no, I don't want you. You're not my guide. I don't want you as my guide.
I've only been good ever, like remotely good, on 3 different social media outlets, which were YouTube, Facebook, and Reddit. Those are the only 3 I've ever had traction on with anything where I've been really successful. So those are the ones that I stick to, because I just try to stick to what I know, because I can make it work. So I'm really stupid simple on this stuff. But with Reddit, basically, your goal is to find a subreddit that embraces your content. And then basically from there, what I try to do is I try to find a subreddit that embraces other points of view as well as my content. So because I'm from California and I have a lot of empathy for my more kind of moralistic left-leaning friends, the majority of my friends out here in California, I'd say they're not necessarily hippies, but they are pretty left-wing. So I have a lot of empathy for their viewpoints, even though I'm just right of center. So in those cases, right, I know how to talk to them. I know how they like to be talked to. I understand their values. I understand where they're coming from, and I have those relationships. So hitting up like the liberal gun owners Reddit, hitting up two-way liberals, and the gun politics subreddits for me have been really productive. And then past that, there's a whole bunch of other Reddits that you can hit. So, you know, firearms, the CCW Reddit, open carry Reddit, whatever. And so I just try to get my content in there. Yeah, I don't try to hide that it's my content, but the key to success on Reddit, and I learned this from back in the day when I was doing video game content, was just don't just spam your own stuff. You want to be participating like you're participating on Calguns or the forums or any other social media. You want to be having conversations that bring value to other people and acknowledge what they're doing. If you're just spamming your content into these things, people will reject it. So you want to make sure that you're showing that you're invested in that community too. Because I'm all about their mission. I'm all about getting everybody the Second Amendment. Like, let's protect it for everybody. It's not just for me. It's not just for people that think the way I do. So I want to be really clear with that message and getting it out there. That's what I do. So I don't try to pander necessarily. I just say, hey, look, these are some areas that we agree on, and we can talk about them, and they're interesting. And then people just kind of come in and they talk. And the exposure is also a lot bigger than whoever subscribed to that Reddit, because people will browse and not subscribe to them. So just like a YouTube channel, sometimes people never subscribe to your channel, but they check every video. Same kind of thing with Reddits too. So basically, you just need to find your niche and get in there and just build the value, show the value, demonstrate it, and then just stay consistent. That would be my advice.
Well, and then unlike Discord, where it's literally, Discord is just literally made for discussion, and it's mechanism to facilitate the discussion, and archival elements of it are secondary. Organizational aspects of it are, like, I don't know what the word is for not thought out, because you're going to put your rooms together before they exist. Whereas when you're building something like the Dewey Decimal System, you're building a structure that can be expanded and is designed to be found. So that's where I see the difference between just using those two platforms, for example, where Reddit, all this conversation that's happening is never going away, and it accumulates into a knowledge base, right? And then there's the conversation what's the word? The conversation doesn't start over every 15 minutes. Every time somebody comes along and says, hey, what's a new 38? Instead, they say, like in some of the more different forums would say, there's already a thread on this. Like, don't ask that question, go find the answer. And then if you have a specific additional question, definitely bring it. But don't keep asking the same questions. We've got this system where you don't need to do that. You can already go figure out, right? That's how Reddit is. Like, you're adding your stuff, having a discussion, and then it's there forever.
It's like, yeah, it's like you're like halfway in between that, right? So you're like, picture it like halfway between Discord and an old forum. So you determine what channels you want, right? So you create a subreddit, just like in Discord, you would create a channel or a server for your own stuff. And then with Reddit, things that get more upvotes float to the top. So in that way, it's just like a forum post. The more engagement it has, you know, depending on how you had that forum set up. Like, I remember back in the PHPVB days and the vBulletin days, all that, you could do some mods and you can set up your stuff so that the posts that were interacted with more frequently came to the top, all that type of stuff. So Reddit works the same way. So the stuff that's trending upwards and the stuff that's more popular goes to the top. The rest of it sifts to the bottom. So if it's something that people want to engage with,
that's just if you want to surf or browse. But if you're having a discussion or you're only interested in whatever read versions of that, then you filter that, or you have your searches, and then you go to Reddit and you get what you care about.
Yeah, and generally after a little bit of time, most Reddit threads are dead. So it's okay for people to go back, and this is where It's a little bit different than the forum courtesy, and it also depends on the subreddit, because the culture can change in between the subreddits, because those are ran by separate moderator teams a lot of the time. So in those instances, you might have someone that comes in and says, hey, I'm new to guns, what should I learn first? And everyone's going to say, learn the safety rules and figure out, your philosophy of use and what you want to buy, whatever, right? And so they'll go through, here's everything a new gun owner needs to know. They might link them to another Reddit thread where it was discussed. They might just type it all out and explain it there for that person. But no one, it's rare for me to see like, oh my God, we just did this thread 2 weeks ago. Why are you bringing it back up again? Normally they're pretty amenable to new conversation. They just don't want exact reposts of things like memes or exact reposts of videos and whatever. So if there's like already one thread that's current and hot on an issue, you creating the same thread on that issue again, people will just kind of ignore that if there's a thread that all the conversation's happening at. So how people see the content is a little bit different than how people would see it back in the forum days. They're more patient in some regards and less patient in others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, no, for sure. And things are going to change, like you say. If you go and it's like a forum in that there's threads and there's topics, right? And you're a member, and if back in the day, if it was a forum, like I had a forum about guns, and there was a hunting section and a collectible section. Now, if you're a collector and you don't care about hunting, you're still going to join the forum. And if you're a hunter and you don't care about collecting or whatever the opposite is, you're still going to join the forum, and you may never meet each other because you're interested in different things. But that third person who is interested in both things is still a member of the forum, and then, has the opportunity to have different groups of friends and stuff. So it's, in that respect, it's like a forum. And then I guess technically the way that you post and stuff doesn't visually look like a forum as much as it used to, but it's like a forum. But the thing is, instead of being about autos or guns or camping or cooking, it's about everything, right? Every single topic, period, including weird topics. So people can be a member of Reddit and then go talk about cars, and then go talk about cooking, and then go talk about carbines, and then go talk about any other number of weird things that start with the letter C or whatever other number.
Yeah, no, there's literally a subreddit for pretty much everything under the sun, and if it's not, you should make it. So if someone doesn't have it, you should make it just so you can get traction there.
But unlike Facebook, when it gets that large, it isn't like with the ulterior motive of figuring out the best way to sell to everybody who likes red shoes or yellow biscuits, but just to kind of leave you alone. But not like 4chan where you're anonymous and being completely mean to each other. But it's not like Facebook where they're tracking and watching and selling the data.
I'm not sure because I haven't worked too much with Reddit ads yet, so I wouldn't be able to comment too much. But my understanding is that they focus it mostly on, I think, like interest-based targeting. I'm not convinced that Reddit's trying to collect the same level of data that Facebook is. But if you are, say, going constantly to gun subreddits, I would see it as fairly likely that Reddit could try to sell your ad space for, tactical light accessories or slings or something. Like I could see them doing that, and helping advertisers make that decision or allowing them to make decisions like that. I'm not sure what their specific policies on firearms are though, so I don't know if they allow, selling accessories or things like that. But I do know that if you were to buy one, you could just say, I want to advertise in these few subreddits, and then drop your ad money there. So,
but they have the functionality, but it's nowhere near as like, from what I understand, it's nowhere near as like it drives the Facebook system. That's really the engine of Facebook, and then our interactions as humans is like trickling on the outside of the infrastructure. With Reddit, it's not all about the data accumulation.
Traffic and engagement. I mean, Reddit has a bunch of the internet, like a high percentage of the internet's traffic. I want to say it's like Facebook tier levels of internet traffic going to Reddit. So it's definitely not a source that you'd want to sleep on. It's like, like with TikTok now. I think like most people that are my age or older look at or hear the sound of TikTok and they go, oh God, and they start rolling their eyes. But with TikTok, your organic reach on that platform is just gigantic. And, there's a lot of advantages to using that platform. You don't have to do stupid lip sync videos. You can just make your own content. I'm not anti anything. To quote Clint Smith, I'm not anti anything. If it works for you, it works for you. Like, by all means, I'm very just like, see where you're getting momentum and then get behind it and then double and triple down on it. So in my case, like Reddit works, YouTube works. I hit them both.
Right on. Well, I don't want to make it seem like you're somehow like a Reddit representative or some sort of like aficionado or some sort of like super expert. It's just that compared to us, you know more. So I appreciate it. And it sounds like Enrique was already digging what you've been putting out. So yeah, I've already got some idea of if I can wing it. I was just telling Clover, best laid plans. I thought I figured out a cool way to incorporate doing a different type of show or a 2-stage show where I basically lay out the topics during the day in a short show that's more appropriate, I guess, or sized right to be a podcast under 20 minutes, and then have this show as the follow-up. So I thought about that for a while now to have that format. So trying to figure out how to implement that. So I'm attempting to implement that next month, but without having to spend the whole rest of the show talking about Reddit. I mean, we'll talk about that in the future. If anybody wants to talk about it, feel free to jump in. But the other thing I was thinking, and the reason I thought it'd be interesting to talk to Walk the Talk America, that's there's different level organizations that are pro gun owners' rights. I would call it a federal level or national level, even though it's brand new. It's not necessarily state level. Or I guess another way to look at it would be consider it area of interest focused. And its area of interest is mental health and suicide prevention, or I guess just mental health, although one thing leads to the other. I don't think they'd represent it as suicide prevention only or anything like that. But I think you can listen to the founder's origin story or whatever, but you got to take that into hand with what they've been able to do and whatever since they've been around. I think that leads real close to what you're kind of describing there, as far as with the suicide being 2/3 of the number of firearms deaths, approaching someone who's a gun prohibitionist and anti, and saying, okay, is your goal here to reduce death? It's like that the real goal here, or is your goal to bother gun owners, or is your goal to solve the idea of firearms murders and deaths? If your goal is to get rid of deaths, then we've got 2/3 of the concern has nothing to do with gun owners. So you could quit poking us. And I think this is a strategy that no one has ever talked about. You got 2/3 of gun deaths over here in a pile, and it's suicides, and you insist on throwing that at us. And instead of us ever saying this, we go, hey, we're offended, and we fight them about them taking our guns, and they insist on getting duped with the false black and white, right? The false premise that he has to be one or the other, when there's this 2/3 that we could eliminate, and we could work on this together. And as gun owners, we could throw all the resources you want. Talk about a compromise. We don't have to touch any gun with this. You never come near a law with this. Instead, like you had talked about in this show, that your initial, scratch drawing of how it could work was the numbers were off by a bit. Big deal. Like once you got actual people working on how to eliminate that aspect, well, now we can dramatically reduce the number. And not only do we appease them idiots who are working off all kinds of false, coming from false places and expecting crazy things, not only do we make them happy in a way that adds no laws and doesn't bother us almost at all. I don't even know how, it's hard to say, but I can't imagine how it would bother us. You know what I'm saying? If we can eliminate so many deaths, and then when the end result is we've compromised with them, we've reduced deaths. I can't imagine how they could gather the balls to turn around and then say, and now we want the rest of your guns. But if they ever did try to do that, we'd have so much more, and I'm use the pun, ammunition to use against that bullshit shit, and man, talk about the time to do it. So Clover, am I wrong? Like he's the guy to talk about.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I would just add one more caveat onto that, because this is something interesting that I'm going to start looking into now as well, because I just came across a study on it today. And there was a study that talked a lot about suicide and right. And whenever academics talk about suicide, something that does come up is denying the means to suicide. And so they'll talk about locking up pesticides in, say, community-owned facilities, or locking up, whatever poisons and chemicals, and making sure that bridges have nets under them to catch people that try to throw themselves off the bridge or whatever. So they'll talk about all kinds of different measures. When they got to guns, there was one that I found that was really interesting, and I'll see if I can find it just so you can see it. They say the reason that gun owners don't come forward when they're thinking about suicide is because they know that their rights are going to get taken from them. So what you would need to do is find a way to allow gun owners to hand off their guns when they're in a mental state that says, hey, I shouldn't have this in my house right now. I want to be responsible, but I need to be able to get it back when I'm okay. Because they don't have trust in that. So what if, and just hear me out, what if what we could allow is, if a gun owner did that, we could have something where they're able to hand off their firearms to a family member or a close friend, or something where it's not the government watching those, and they're able to be responsible. That way they can be honest when they're pursuing mental health, because as it stands, they're, in a sense, denied a right or they're denied good mental health options and being honest with a mental health professional, because if they admit that they have a mental health issue, their guns could get taken. Like in a state like mine, California, you can get red flagged in a second and it's over, right? So can we give gun owners some kind of way of doing that without government intervention? Can we give them legal protection so the government cannot intervene in those instances? If we could do stuff like that, that would also help. So if we can just come up with a plan that doesn't screw people on their rights, we can help gun owners with their mental health, which would also help the suicide problem. Not to mention, there's dozens and dozens of things that we can do that, if we did them better, or if we rolled them out nationwide, wouldn't even be talking about guns at all, and would just impact this stuff. Like if you raise the education performance in our schools, if you could raise all kids' grades 10%, that would wipe out a significant amount of homicide. That would wipe out a significant amount of income disparity, right? So there's little things like that. It's like, hey, look, we just got to figure out how to get this in gear. We got to pump up some numbers a little bit. If we do that, we see these massive gains, and guns aren't even on the table. Like, you don't even have to talk about them. But by throwing up obstacles and making gun owners scared of you, it doesn't help the discussion. It makes them want to fight in tooth and nail, because like, why would you ever want your rights taken away? Why would you ever want your property taken away by the government? Like, it doesn't make sense to try to play us that way, when instead you could work with us on stuff. So I think if we could just make those opportunities more obvious, we'd be way more successful.
Well, okay, so there's a couple of things there. So the initial, when you heard about that from doctors talking about it, that's part of what Walk the Talk America is efforting to. When you talk to, or I don't know if you can remember, I listened and talked, been in, not like I've talked directly to Mike that often, but been in conversations where I'm in the chat like this with Mike, the guy who started Walk the Talk America, and then watching shows that he's in. So somewhere along the line, I know he's talked about having conversations with doctors, physicians, and illuminating them to that situation, because they didn't know that was a legal thing. If a doctor isn't a gun owner, then they may never understand that there's that catch-22, that if you have a mental thing, you can't own a firearm. So that would create firearms owners to hesitate doing mental things. Right. So he brought that to their attention. So that's interesting. I mean, he's not the only person doing that, but he definitely has done that. So I'm not sure if the physician you talked to had some influence, but that certainly kind of comes around in a circle there, what Mike's doing. But here's the thing, Chris out there in the chat, and Clover knows the people involved with this organization called Hold My Guns, which is it's about a year now, going on its second year old. Mm-hmm. Just got their nonprofit or status, in the last year. And, if it wasn't for all this craziness this year, they'd be off and running, growing, because they address pretty much exactly what you were talking about as far as your perspective on it. Like, you know, if someone was questioning or just stressed, knew they might be whatever, it's your business to have whatever, you know, but have a structure in place, a system in place to deal with it. So there's that. However, my apprehension there is I don't want to shit on nothing, and you need options. But I'd much rather see that catch-22 be used to illustrate how stupid and how unnecessary and how there's causality. Like your video was really about the idea that society would be better without guns. Therefore, you shouldn't have guns, right? That logic is what's used against us.
Yeah.
And then when you follow that logic through, why, how, right? Just ask those two questions. And as soon as you start asking them questions, right? Well, that's, I guess, where I'm getting at. Like they're the ones that created a situation where someone who's stressed is not going to take their guns to their friend's house because it might not be legal, right? So let's get rid of that infringement. Let's get rid of that law. Let's make it where, hey, if I'm drinking, I give my keys to somebody and you get a pat on the back, not a handcuffs on the wrist.
Right.
I don't want to see an organization that appeases a bullshit scenario, a bullshit catch-22, and they use this. I don't want to say they engineer it because that gives them too much credit, but they've certainly been using suicides against us for a long time. And we've had a 4473, which says if you've got any kind of issue, you ain't got guns since 68. It's my whole life. I have never lived without a 4473. I don't think I talked to too many people who can say they have, right? So they won with that. And they created a situation that we're dealing with right now. And I don't want to see, just as much as I got the same problems with holdmyguns.org as I have with the American Suppressor Association. Valid organizations, American Suppressor Associations have my support for a long time. But I do not want to see a streamlined version of the 4473 or the Form 1 or the Form 2. I want to see no NFA. I want to see 100% effort towards removing the NFA. I don't want to see an easier version of appeal, compromise or complying with their infringement. Okay, I'll put, yeah. But there is an organization. Clover can tell you way more about it. He's interviewed them. He's talked to the people.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd love to hear it.
well, I mean, Mike they work really closely with Mental Health America. And that is one of the things they're pushing is to make more, more doctors aware, that is an issue. And then, when it comes to, when it comes to Hold My Guns, I mean, that's, you're talking about, well, first of all, through the Walk the Talk America website, there's a lot of resources there, and one of the resources available is to be able to get in touch with one of those doctors that is not going, is not going to turn you in, is going to understand, and they're going to know that, holdmyguns.org, for example, is a place. And then from there, you can go to, the local gun range, the local gun shop, whoever is under that roster for holdmyguns.org. But I mean, ultimately, I agree with G-Webs on it that, there needs to be some legislative efforts or legislative relief, I will say, because I don't know what it would require. But, it's like, the whole holdmyguns.org thing, and a lot of the deals, a lot of stuff they're dealing with is, these states where you can't do that. You've got absolutely no recourse to, hand those off, to have those stored, to, to do that on your own. It's illegal. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. It was in Dallas, so 17, when they had an author on, and I can't remember the name of her book because I was farting around in the lobby like at Yahoo, probably smoking, because I was like, oh, I don't want to listen to this. An idiot. hey, we got to learn, right? And it turns out that's what it was about, is suicides, and how we're basically given the antis, the gun prohibitionists, 2/3 by ignoring suicides or being embarrassed or being awkward and not talking about it. No, it's not us, and quit throwing those at us. But who are the suicides? 22 a day are veterans. So that's sad that we're ignoring and allowing them to use veterans as weapons against us. And I mean, it's something that, again, I don't think anybody has to become some sort of therapist, or what's the word, like, an advocate for anti-suicide or whatever. But I can't imagine anybody would mind if anybody put effort in towards, getting rid of that situation or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it gets nebulous, right? Because we can go down the rabbit hole of like a whole bunch of different ways that we can do it, and at that point, it just becomes, hey, look, you're looking at a menu, pick what you want to order, and we'll do it. Like, and that's kind of what I want to get together for these, the anti-gun crowd is, hey, here's a menu of things that are on the table for us to negotiate with. These are things that, hey, look, not every gun owner is going to agree. Some might think that it's welfare. Some might think that it's socialism. Some might think that it's this and that. It's a waste of money. Like some of these things might be, you have to increase per capita spending by $45. So as in $45 per 100,000 people, and then you reduce suicides by more than a few percent. So it's like some of these impacts are gigantic for a very small dollar spend. You just need to focus an iota of your time. But yeah, to your point, I think also we have to show that how they're going about it is absolutely encouraging a suicide problem. How they're going about it is stigmatizing the gun owner, and it's making that gun owner unable to get support. So if they continue to go about things the way that they do, these gun control groups, they're really encouraging gun owner suicide. They're really just trying to pump up their metrics so that they can continue their war on guns. Mm-hmm. And if that's not the intent, then they're just ignorant of that, and they need to be educated of it. And I'm more than willing to assume that they're ignorant of it. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I know not everyone in the gun community does, and I can respect that. But, for the sake of conversation, I give them the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps they're just ignorant. That's fine. But then, yes, we have to educate them on what that stigma is doing and how that works. And I think the way to do it is just calmly and just through that rational discourse, pull them out of their fear-mongering narrative, make them just engage the facts as though they're on the table, and then we'll actually get somewhere substantive. But if we allow them to use the same kind of tactics that they would always blame, say, the NRA for using. Not to get everyone started on the NRA, but I'm reading the Moms Demand Action book right now on how that organization was founded and what their tactics and techniques are.
Hold on. So this is like a biography of Moms Demand?
Yeah, it's of Shannon Watts of Moms Demand Action. She wrote the book on how she started the organization, everything from how she networked from Everytown in Bloomberg to how she encourages moms to get out there, how she's used her PR background to flip things.
I've seen a bunch of quotes. So these are new quotes. This is a new book?
This is from 2019, I want to say.
What's the name of it?
It's, I don't know if I can. Yeah. Okay,
go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, so at any rate, I'm reading it, and then I'm going to be dropping next couple of weeks. I'll be dropping a video where I go like full expose. I'm like, hey, this is everything I learned from my Army background doing psychological operations that she's using here, because she worked in PR, so she knows all the dirty tricks too.
So awesome. So how a grassroots fight like a mother. How a grassroots.
Yep.
2018. Nice.
Yep. So basically, the high level overview is she saw organizations like Mothers Against Drunk Driving. She saw how mother outrage works in the media. She saw how powerful that was in PC culture, and she went after it. And she just exploited, right? To be fair, smart freaking strategy. And she has had her wins and her losses with that strategy, but she's been able to do things to fight gun rights with that strategy, But I try to give the devil their due.
But she is such a hired hand that she's talking about this nuts and bolts mechanics as if it's selling yellow shoes instead of blue shoes, as if it's part of her resume to get the next job, right? Like she has no actual passion or interest in what the topic is here, right? Like as far as the guns.
I would, as of right now, and this is something that I'll explain more when I have the time to really flesh out the argument. But as of right now, my impression of her is that she really did feel traumatized by the Newtown, Connecticut shooting. I think she sincerely felt traumatized. I think she was at home with nothing else to focus on with that on the news, and then her hyper focus on that with her kids and not knowing how to talk to them about that, and perhaps maybe over talking to her kids about that. You see one of her children develop like an anxiety disorder to where he can't sleep outside of mom and dad's bedroom. And then when he shows that he's resilient and he understands that mass shootings are just a tragedy that happens, she gets even more angry and even more sad because that's just become the new normal. So it's strange because I can find her doing really shrewd and disingenuous things by her own admission. On the other hand, I don't think that her motives are totally unpure, but I do think that it's very important that she wins, and that might be more important than the cause itself. And I know for a fact it's more important than the facts themselves, because that's also an admission she makes in her book.
I guess, okay, so you can be affected and have like a mission to take something out, but if you do it in a way that shows that you're just a conniving, then doesn't that take away from the position? Or do you think that, well, obviously she feels ballsy that she can say whatever she wants and that people will still stick by the position because of some obligation or something?
Yeah, so basically what she outright said was that she would be willing to, and I haven't finished the book yet, I'm just like 4 chapters in. But so far, she said, I'd rather get going on how I feel and say what I need to say than get my facts right. There was a very obvious fact that jumped out at me because I haven't assessed all of her facts critically yet. I haven't gone back to fact check her on everything, but there was one that jumped out. She said 82% of the world's gun homicides happen in America, happen in the United States. Completely factually false. 82% in the United States. Completely false, completely made up number. And her publishers let her run with it. Like, they didn't care. And, you know, she didn't care either. And so that was just one of those interesting things where it's like, yeah, there's that. And then there was another story that she had where she was doing a kind of like a meetup at a local library. And as part of that meetup, what she wound up doing was running into some open carry protesters who were there to just protest what she was speaking to. And funny enough, they sit down, they agree to listen to her presentation. At the end, she says one was visibly shaking. They stayed quiet, they were courteous the entire time, but one was visibly shaking in anger because, in his own words, you know, she's a damn liar. Like, the presentation was nothing but lies. What she tried to do was basically say, take a picture with us, come on. Handed him an object, which was a banner or a flag for Moms Demand Action. And he kind of did the impulsive like grab, like he just took it, and then they took the photo. So they used an open carry protester kind of against his will, like manipulating him is what it sounded like to me, to get him to become propaganda for Moms Demand Action. So there's these like conniving little tricks, and she acts like they're normal. And that was very concerning to me.
And this is a book from last year. So my thing, I guess Clover jumped out of here. He had to do something. It's kind of late for everybody, I guess. Thanks for sticking around. We got some people watching live too. But without going too far into it or whatever, I guess I'm just thinking that we've got the potential. We got the potential this, well, at the end of the resolution of all this, once there's some 2020 hindsight, and people started or have a chance to kind of dig in and see if there was some manipulation through all of this. And I suspect there's going to be just an onion skin, right, of different types of people screwing around and playing around and having strings pulled and discovering who's pulling what and from where and with what intentions, right? And if I'm not wrong, then doesn't it stand to reason that people are going to kind of just retaliate or resist or rebel, I guess, whatever the word is, against people who are like that? And it sounds like she's relishing in the fact that she just kind of, I've got good intentions, so look how much of a dick I am, and I just did a bunch of shit, and ends justify the means, right?
Well, and I think like, yeah, and so I think it's like part of it is she's just trying to be shrewd. And so, like I said, if I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, so let me assume that she thinks she's a good person. Um, if I approach it from that lens, she talks about things like channeling her inner badass, as she calls it. And she also, she talks about that PR background a lot. And so when I look at that all together, I say, it's really interesting that this, I think, 20-year career advertising public relations person just so happens to create a viral Facebook group and just so happens to get networked in with every major anti-gun organization under the sun, and just so happens to talk about basically saying everything short of I celebrate when a mass shooting happens, to use them for PR, to use them to further our cause. She does see them as opportunities, for the record, and she admits as much. But then she also, goes further. She also has that Bloomberg tie. So it's like, career advertising executive, Bloomberg ties, sees mass shootings as opportunities. You do the math, right? And I can assume that she means,
And
well,
there was a void. And there was a void, right? There was, and that's where I think, she's not going to talk about it. But yeah, exactly. Like she saw the opportunity, right?
yeah, and that's the thing. So like, and I get the opportunity angle. Like, I've worked in psychological operations. If something happened in the battle space, it was an opportunity, and I was morally indifferent to it. In theater, like if we just had something create a situation for us that we could use, we used it, and that was how we treated it at war. And a lot of advertising agencies, a lot of companies do PR, things like that. They approach it the same way. So so there is that question though of, is she relishing in the opportunity because it gives her a chance to be successful and she really just likes winning, or is she relishing in the opportunity because her cause is winning? So so I guess that distinction of, is it personal, or is it because she really believes in the cause, or is it just because she's winning at work effectively? And she's talked about pursuing it to the point where her family life has suffered drastically because of her devotion to the goal. So she's willing to give up a lot for this for whatever reason. But I would say it'd be a fair assumption with what I've read so far to say that she's absolutely radicalized against gun rights, even though she would say that she believes in a Second Amendment. I'm sure her belief is probably something along the lines of, it's for hunting. So,
Or you can have an army. I believe the police can have guns or something crazy.
yeah. So
obviously, if she's writing her own story, if she's such a horrible person, if she's willing to do such unscrupulous stuff that her husband left her, or that she's such a workaholic that her kids are stressed out, and it's for the best that they divorce or something, she's not going to write any of that. She's going to, say that she's worked so hard that she has family problems or something.
Well, she said that her family's been nothing but, she did a good PR flip on it, right? Which is how I have to view the lens of everything she says too. So I have to view it as though it's just a human telling me a story. And then I have to also look at it through the lens of, it's someone who's very well versed in flipping situations to be their gain for a narrative. Mm-hmm. That is her skill set, is to control a narrative. So when she says
she's writing this as Wayne LaPierre is being dehumanized and kicked out of the NRA, she can become the opposite, like the individual, the one that everybody knows about and is intimately care about.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting just how it works. So it's like, that's where like it makes my read on her difficult. And what got my interest was when she tweeted something that said, it was looking at one of the Antifa or BLM or whatever Black Bloc organization was tearing down a statue, I think of a conquistador in, I want to say it was New Mexico. And then there was a self-defense shooting that happened immediately afterwards. The guy got chased by a protester with a skateboard that was bashing him with it. And then that protester also pulled out a knife and he got shot. And then the concealed carry guy got arrested coming off of that. And I haven't followed up on that situation since. I've heard rumors that he's been let off and that everything's okay, but I don't totally know. I've also heard rumors that he was with a counter protester organization that was out there. But she tweeted one angle of the shooting, And if you look at any of the other footage that was available of the shooting, you can see a knife present. You can see the guy get hit by a skateboard. You can see not just the skateboard guy hitting him, but also two other people jumping on top of him. You can see that this guy is up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. The angle she showed was the protesters reacting to the gunshots in fear without showing any of what was happening. Literally, all of the fight was out of frame. So I just thought that was an interesting omission. So I was like, what would lead her to that omission? What would make her want to do that? And that's where I found her book, because I just started kind of seeing some of her other tweets and just, found her website eventually. And that's how I got her book. So.
Yeah, crazy. I definitely want to check that out. I like in business biographies anyway. So I'll be comparing it to all the other business biographies. But yeah, obviously there's levels that the timing, I guess, and then whatever it is that she's trying to get across there, whatever message. Because remember, this would have been put out in the big scheme of things. She's publishing this as Bloomberg is running for president, and then we're in a different. It would have played out with him. He would have been running for president as she's coming out with this book, right? Like, here's my team or whatever. Here's my people. You just read her book or whatever. Like, this would all have been run up for that.
Yeah.
What about the idea that you already had a specific, but just a specific as far as addressing united or together or collaboratively addressing strategies to limit suicide, especially through firearm, and then that is an alternative or as a strategy towards saving lives, and then that's one specific, but there's others. You've talked about others in your videos. We've talked about things throughout the years that are, other alternatives that have nothing to do with infringements. And, we actually allow for the removal of laws. So if those kind of strategies are initiated and then they have any kind of success, would that create a situation where her position, her resources, like her whatever, like her, resources, I guess, like her angle would be less because we don't, her position is all these deaths or whatever. And then once it's down to the, I think there's literally dozens of deaths. So, when you get to handguns, it's or rifles, it's down to 300. So it's just not very many. It'd be really difficult for them to, still come at gun owners as if there's some kind of demon when we've worked together to get rid of 20,000. So is there some way to get rid of her effectively because, her position crumbles? So even though she's made this great position for herself with the book and her blah, 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 is there a way to get rid of her based on things that she can't control necessarily, I guess?
I think so. So I think the first thing is to look at what her most likely counter would be. So let's say that the terrain shifts, and let's just talk like we're playing a chess game with her, right? So, my first thought would be, okay, so now there's less gun deaths because these things were substantively addressed with policy and or substantively addressed in the rhetoric to where she now believes that it's a real threat that there are going to be less gun deaths. So she knows that her message is going to have scarcity attached to it. Immediately what she's going to want to switch to, if she has any sense about her at all, is going to be focusing on specific anecdotes, so i.e. school shootings and things like that. She's going to want to still focus on anywhere where there is a deficiency, or the smarter flip and a bit more of a gambit is look at how these gun violence prevention measures are working. These were our ideas too, and we want to do more. So what I would say is to call her out, because her strategy is something that you could reduce to something called Mott and Bailey. Are you familiar with that?
What is it again?
Mott and Bailey.
No.
Okay, so this is kind of a medieval reference, and I think you'll like this analogy because you and I are analogy guys. But
hold on. Just to be fair, though, it's 11. You still got time to chat?
Yeah. I'm good. I'll finish up on this note, and we can clear up whatever conversation, and I'll get off to bed. But yeah. So the Mott and Bailey is basically an idea of you have, I believe it's the Mott is the castle fortress, and the entire kingdom is moated, and the lord would come out of the Mott and then cross the bridge into the Bailey. which is like the farms in the town where everybody's having a good time. And so you'll see that there's kind of, in a sense, in a debate, there's a goalpost that's hidden back in the castle, back in the fortification. And there's a goalpost that's out in the bailey. It's the nice bait that you leave out for everyone. I just want to reduce gun violence. I just want to do whatever. And then as soon as she needs to shift the goalpost and go on defense because her strategy is not working, she's going to change definitions, start equivocating, shifting goalposts, and she's going to retreat to the Mott. And then from there, you're no longer having the same discussion, because when you address the points that she actually made, what she's going to say is, well, what I really just meant was this, and what people would say is this, right? And so all of the points that she made, all of her rhetoric, all of her arguments just start to fall apart because she doesn't have this really convincing, at an intellectual level anyway, she doesn't have a convincing plan. She doesn't have a substantiated plan. She doesn't have a well-studied plan. So basically, when you see her begin to shift between offense and defense in her rhetoric, you would start to see her move goalposts on what she means. So if you're a good debater, if you're good in the public sphere, you would just point out that she is moving that goalpost, that it's a Mott and Bailey fallacy, and that all she's doing is using that to control an outrage mob. That is her plan. Her plan is to keep moving the goalposts to position her people where she needs them so that they yell loud enough. Because after all, if checking your facts is secondary, how much does the truth matter? So when we're calm and assertive and we have a smile on our face and we're just talking about the truth and what it is, and this is where the data is gone, this is the multivariate analysis, this is the bivariate analysis, this is the meta-analysis, and we can just show all of those things, at the end of the day, she doesn't have any place to run other than emotional arguments, and the internet is going to see through that. Like, the internet will see through that shit in about 2 seconds.
No,
So
when you're talking about this, I'm not familiar enough. Is this something that she would have like physically in place, like have resources set up as a fallback plan? Or is this something that she runs to looking for cover, like as the skies fall in just any place that, and she's just going to have her wits and she's just going to use past experience? So in other words, if that was the case, you can clear it so that she has nowhere to run to. You make sure that you do it in a place where she's got nowhere to go. Or is it something where she's created places and she's going to go to those bunkers?
so if someone's good with rhetoric, and I would need to explore more of her strategy to really offer a more detailed comment. If she's good at what she's done, then she would have created those. If she's not good at what she's doing, or she hasn't sufficiently thought about it, then she will be doing it reflexively on the fly. And you can
probably
see,
like if you've dealt with it before, right? Like if you've had to deal with it, you probably would be wiser and you'd put stuff in place. And if you've always been successful, you don't have fallback.
Yeah. So like if I said, for instance, oh, I think all guns should be banned. And then you said, oh, really? You think all guns should be banned? And I said, well, I guess just, not guns that are hunting guns, but everything else. And you're like, okay, right. And so you think all these guns should be banned. I said, oh, no, not all the guns. I said this. He said, well, these hunting rifles are powerful. And then I go back to, well, yeah, all I want to do is just restrict guns a little bit more. And you see me just shift the goalposts in a conversation to the point where it's just difficult to pin me down. That's what she's going to do out of reflex. So she's going to be trained in that, but also if she is intelligent, she kind of has rhetoric pre-planned to position her in ways where that's going to be easy. So it's just making sure that she can't weasel out. And the way to do it is just to call it out as you see it. And like I said, do it calmly and do it with a smile, and she can't do anything about it because you're happy-go-lucky. She's trying to do outrage. She's trying to make a gun owner look angry and unstable because that's a scary thing for moms to see. If you present a happy image where guns are normal out here, man, and we're just having a good time and we're actually really intelligent guys and we know our data and we know our philosophy, we know our arguments, what's she going to do? What can she do?
All right, I'm going to take it up 3 levels because you can handle it, and I don't got much more time before you jump out today. Whatever we're doing for her is a system, or it's a set of steps, right? That can be duplicated with some differential for different people. How much would it be different to, instead of coming up with strategies for her, to come up with systems for the future? Because we got things like the DC Project, which is going to take her out. They're going to talk to moms directly. They are moms. They're going to talk to representatives. They are running for seats. They will be the next representatives. We're going to have a paradigm shift, and we're going to have different fighters. She's a Bloomberg fighter that came from Monsanto. The next one is probably going to be a kid, right? Because they're going to hire somebody young and dumb or something. So anyway, I'm just wondering if there's some ways that we can come up with systems that we can leave behind as a set of symbols in rock, instead of hoping that they read books about the specifics of what we done. Because right now, if you try to go figure out what McDonald or Heller or Ezell, the Supreme Court cases, I mean, I don't throw that at you before you leave.
Yeah, and that's a big one too.
We can leave it for next time, but just as long as we throw stuff out.
I'd love to. I know I love tackling big questions, and I love coming back to revisit answers if I think I can do it better. So this is fun for me. So I think a big part of it is knowing that their plan is to punch first, right? Their plan is to react, and her plan accounts for the fact that we're going to say don't politicize shootings and don't stand on the graves of dead children to make your arguments. She's counting on that type of thing.
Yep.
So it's like, she's laid it all out. She said outright, this is our strategy every time, and every time we're just going to do this. So like, she made herself as predictable as possible. I would say just control the counter narrative. So we can counterpunch and wait for her to slip up in some regards. There are some proactive things we'd want to do to kind of prime the population. So those things where right now we could talk about all of the benefits of firearms, because right now they're selling like freaking hotcakes, right? Everybody wants a gun right now. The environment's unstable. People don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. President Trump is doing some pretty crazy stuff. I don't know if you heard about the 1488 ad that he did. We can talk about that another time. But
it's unprecedented amount of new gun ownership, and it's also at a time when there's more people that understand their cameras, are willing to have already established channels. So in other words, there's more individuals reaching out to those new gun owners. There's more people that have immediate access on their phones or through email links or whatever to stuff that's even well produced and made. Like Clover was just in here. He did a bunch of, I'm sure he did some stuff on Welcome to Guns that he can point people to, or people that know about Clover can point people. So these new shooters aren't coming in with like, here's a brochure from 1968 that I got from the NRA when I took a hunter safety class 10 years ago. Now they're getting what's appropriate for them. If they seek it out, they're finding stuff that's comfortable for them. So yeah, I agree with you. Plus they're coming into, the most warm, welcoming environment that they could get.
Oh yeah, and we've got liberals right now. So like, it was a top post, I think, in Second Amendment liberals right now in Reddit, and it was an old Thunder Ranch video. If you're familiar with Quint Smith and Thunder Ranch, and it was a clip from him that I shared with my friends, like I think 2-3 years ago. I think it was whenever that clip, like whenever I discovered Thunder Ranch, and I was like, oh, this is legit. I know this guy knows what he's talking about. I like his attitude. He's funny. He's engaging. I love it. And the clip was on how to get liberals to basically agree to a gun. And he talks about a story where basically Texan liberal Save the Whales soccer mom gets her face reconstructed after getting jumped in a parking lot by a couple guys. So after that, she decided, I'm going to go get a gun and I'm going to go take a course. I'm going to go find the baddest course I can take. And she found herself at Thunder Ranch. And that's not a plug. I've never done anything with him, but at any rate, that's what he did. And he just pointed out, he's like, hell hath no fury like an ass-kicked liberal. Kick the shit out of them and they'll all want to buy a gun. And it's like, that's where they're at right now. That's what they think Trump is doing to them right now. That's what they think counter-protesters are doing to them right now. It's like, we got them on our side. If you can't resist the president that you think is Hitler and give Hitler your guns at the same time. Doesn't make sense.
It's ours to lose. Sure. And they're, not just the resource online, but as you say that, when they go into stores, they're not good. Except for like the exasperated clerk who's just dealt with a lot of customers that day, which, that's going to happen at the Starbucks or the ice cream place or the, Walmart or Target, or it can happen anywhere. Aside from that, There's no, I've been to a lot of gun shops. There's very, very few, probably none that I've visited. And counting for the couple that must exist, very few are going to be at all resistant to somebody, not just as a new customer, but just all gun shops understand the significance. If they've been in business at all, they've been in business since 2013, when it all happened, a lot of new gun shops, but the shops that have been around since before that, I talk about cycles all the time. Gun shops aren't just aware of the cycles, they live them every single day. So yeah, the new gun owners are coming in and just, it's not like they're coming in and having to figure out a new culture or get something, the scraps or something. Like they're coming in and they're being treated like, hey, welcome. We've got systems in place to facilitate what it is you need and how you learn. And if we're not right for you, there's 6 others that are within reach.
Exactly. Yeah. There's so many ways to hit people right now in the Second Amendment, and I'm looking at Wood's comment here, and he's talking about he's talking about the reality of things. He's talking about a lot of people being flexible to it right now. And it's that's exactly what we have. Like the public perception is shifting. They are starting to see arguments we've been making for. I shouldn't say we, but I should say the gun community has been making for decades. Before I was born.
They made them poorly, though. We had to make them against things like Waco and against things like Ruby Ridge, which are questionable at best. And it's sort of like Yankee going up to Seattle. He doesn't have to agree with what's being said, but the fact that you got the right to protest is a right? So you got a right to not get the government to come plow into your shit or kill a bunch of people. You don't want to have to pick crazy, weird outlier examples like that are contrived or, they're old and there's all kinds of back and forth. He said, she said, and facts are all dependent on government. All that stuff is shaky at best, right? And
yeah,
plus it's old as shit. Barely any of it's recent. And then all of this is happening in real time. So yes, I agree with you 100%. It just, times 1,000. Ours. It would be. Well, it's our salutes. I don't know if there's got to be a way to say that with even more emphasis.
Yeah, and to touch back on, just because I saw another comment from Enrique, both on the PR, the heartless PR. I think that we do need to have people that are ready to go out there and own that narrative to an extent, but we also need to make sure that we aren't totally heartless with how we do it. One of the failures of their approach is that Mothers Demand Action is relying on outrage, and they're relying on fake empathy. We need to be the real thing. We need to be authentic. What they're doing is concern trolling. They're pretending to have everyone's best interest at heart without giving regard to the facts, without giving regard to your situation. In reality, they are coming for you. They are going to try to trick everyone in the book if that's how they do it, by hook or by crook. They are coming for your gun rights. We cannot sleep on that. Cannot. So yes, we do need to be shrewd, but we also still need to be human, because that's what's going to give us the narrative win, because that win might not happen now. That win might be a shift in the culture that takes 20 years to make happen, but we need to be setting the groundwork to be effective for the long term, and to be winning the narrative war long term, to be recovering from the failures of the NRA in the long term. I'm going to keep going back to that, but if we're not providing the virtuous angle, and if we play the same game that they do, then all that's going to happen right now is fighting fire with fire, and our fire is just going to be a little better. I'd like to win on a better path forward, a more moral path forward, if you would. But that's my preference anyway.
So I've been an advocate. I like the NRA. I'm not going to ever suggest sacrificing it or leaving, turning our backs on it. It's important and it's necessary and it's awesome. But at the same time, I think of it as our aircraft carrier, and nothing alone is enough. So along the lines you're saying there, I've always been a big fan and efforting as much as possible to make people aware of the various organizations that are out there. So there's, community focus, there's state level, there's area of interest. There's all kinds of different organizations out there attacking things at different levels, and they've started at different times, and they're they've gotten larger and smaller. They've had victories and whatnot. I I guess I'm trying to think like a tapestry, like a fabric, right? It's the individuals working together and intertwining that create the whatever fabric that stops the other side, right? You do that together. You do that in the open. You do that, and like you said, it's got the, is it right to say moral or the virtuous or the like the factual side, whatever it is, to be like the positive side. You can't do that with like dubious. You can't really work together and together create a is it a tapestry or woven fabric or whatever. You can't do that with a hand behind your back. You can't do that with picking out a little bit for yourself. That those organizations that are doing it all have a good interest in mind. They're doing their thing. They're for their area. They're with their community. They're with their area of interest, whatever it is they're focused on. They're that point in the fabric, and together we come up with some system. We're all working together, and then like I guess the other side of that is our kids, the others that come along to either be part of it or to evaluate which side they want to participate in. Our side is inherently open and positive and working towards the best interest of all, where the other side is looking for the holes, waiting for opportunities, using hand-picked data. And the more and more enlightening we can be to just shine a light on that while the rest of us are sowing, right?
Yeah, and like that's exactly right. So like I guess the way that I would put it is this, right? You can absolutely go after them in a heartless way, and I'm seeing some more comments from like Enrique down here that are like absolutely swing on them, like by all means go after them and go after them hard. But think of it like you're at war, and think of how you go about civilians in war. You don't create casualties, right? You try to focus your fire on the enemy as much as possible. You want to keep the moral high ground. It's very important that you do, because if you don't, the people don't forgive you for it, right? So you want to make sure that that you are staying beyond reproach. You want to have that moral high ground. As long as you do that, swing away, deny them quarter at every opportunity. You don't have to be like I am, So like if you're talking about winning rhetoric, I play like a super nice guy. Like I'm going to work aggressively to agree with someone. And in reality, this is my secret, that is a spider's web. So like if you agree with me too much, or if you don't agree with me at all, you're just tying yourself in a web. And that's how I like to debate. And I get very nebulous. If I'm trying to defeat a position, that's what I would do. So instead of doing that, and instead of using my training, what I prefer to do is just have a rational conversation with someone where we look at the data, we look at everything going on, and I'm not trying to trick you and choke you up and pull you in all these different directions. All I want to do is just have a conversation like you're an adult, and where we don't have to play the rhetoric games, because real talk, if we want to play the game, I can play it better than you. And that's where I would leave it with them, So, you want to keep that moral high ground. You don't want to go to deceit. You don't want to go to deception. You want to be just leaning with the truth, and you want to be focusing on having everybody's best interest in mind, and not concerned trolling like they do. If you do that, you win, and we win. And it might not, like I said, it might not be today. It might be 20 years from now, but we win. We'll take a lot of effort, a lot of time, but we can do it.
Right on. Why don't you quit and go sleep or whatever, and join us again. Clover jumped in because we're working on a project and he's trying to help me. But I'll read that email. I haven't even read it that you sent earlier. And
that's the link to the post, so you could just see some of the responses there and how people are doing it, just in case I don't have time to touch base with you. So
I'd like to say I've got a Reddit, and I don't know how to even explain it. I think, like you said, you got like a shelf there or something. So I've got a place, and you say not to spam. All I have ever done is spam. It's just that I think I've been doing it since like Reddit started, or at least, since 2008 or something. So if I do it, it's like I've got a auto reposting thing happen. So it doesn't get noticed or offends anybody. So if I've got stuff on Reddit, it's all happened like automatically, and it hasn't been noticed at all. So I haven't had, anyway, since I've had an account and there might be stuff there, I've almost had no interaction with it. So I'll go check it out. But I'll definitely need the electronic version of holding my hand through there, or at least I would appreciate it, so I don't feel like I just don't want to waste a bunch of time exploring something that you could just show me
Oh, for
around.
sure. Yeah, we can take some time offline too, if you want, and
No,
go
I'm
from
good
there.
online. I like doing what I call the two-way media workshop. So if I'm going to do something, unless it's something private, I'll let people watch over our shoulder because half the time watching somebody do it is better than trying to watch a tutorial, right? So if you're down, we'll just do it online
Yeah.
sometime. Right on.
Sounds good, dude. So,
Good.
all right, I'll let you go.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Yeah. So there's still a bunch of people joining. So if you want to keep throwing stuff in there, feel free. If you want to keep throwing money in there, go for it. But I just meant if you want to keep throwing comments in there, feel free. So I'm glad that Walt and Clover got to meet, and barbecue was in here. So we had 4 people for a while. Everybody chatting. The link's out there. If you want to jump in, let me know. I'll throw the link out again. But there's other things going on. So it is Cop Day. No, it isn't. It is LEOPA or whatever, the National Law Enforcement Protection Act. So it's the day that they what am I trying to say? They ended? No, I can't think of the word. They stopped the importation of armor-piercing ammunition and stopped gun shops from being able to sell it. It's pretty lame. Anyway, so that happened today, but then it's also, I think there was some other stuff in it. The other stuff all applied to cops. There's a couple of pieces of federal level legislation that gave police consistency, the same way that CCW, it'd be nice to have consistency with CCW, or we do have consistency with driver's licenses. From what I understand, that's what the national level laws where it'll give police and then eventually retired police consistency. So I guess if you're a cop in Louisiana, it's kind of the same as being a cop in New Hampshire. I don't know if that's good or bad. It seems fine to me. But most of it's all cop stuff from what I remember, except for the part where they freaking banned armor-piercing ammo. So that's got to go. So I'm going to rage against that. Let's at least take a minute to rage against that. And then Walt was in here, so I'm going to talk about if Woods is still listening. If Garrett is out there, you guys might be interested. I guess some of the others might still be interested. Enrique might be interested. He had an interesting video over on Walt's channel there. He doesn't have very many, so it's like his last one or something. But consequentialism. So really interesting way to address an gun prohibitionist's position. What would be the general position, I guess? We would be safer without guns, so you shouldn't have guns. I guess, is that it? I might be summarizing it wrong, but you can go get it from his video. But pretty cool. And then like 6 or 7, I guess, different ways to address that, right? The easiest one, I think, to relate on the chat like this would be someone comes at you with the world would be safer without guns, therefore you shouldn't have guns, to ask, what are the other consequences? Because if they're a consequentialist, right, the ends justify the means, the results are worth the, whatever it takes to get to those results, then you ask them, what are the other results? What are the consequences of that? You're handpicking this and this. What's the rest of that? And I love it. I don't think I've ever heard anybody suggest that, because it's an open-ended question and it requires them to go past the, I'm offended and I'm virtual signaling. I don't like you. I don't like what you stand for. I like what somebody said would be awesome and it sounds like a great idea, and it pisses you off, so I'm regurgitating that info, right? Now you question them on it, make them think about it. And then I'm just talking about, he has a book. What? What's happening over here? So here's $10. Thank you for that. This is probably from before. Walt was saying something. Walt, I think, mostly does the Reddit. So I think he talks on there most of the time. Still here, but on I5. I just yawned really bad, so I'm probably going to be ending it here before too long. I don't know what this is all about. He has a book. That was cool. We were talking about a book. Oh, we were talking about the book by Shannon Watts, the chick who used to work for Monsanto and then Bloomberg hired her to run Women or Moms Demand Attention. She wrote a book last year, and I was pretty distracted because I was immediately, whenever I hear somebody's got a book, I go look for it, an audio version of it on YouTube, and I couldn't find one. But I did find an hour-long interview, an innovation lab at the Commonwealth Club. So what the fuck is a Commonwealth Club? Makes me want to kick in the nuts for saying something like Commonwealth Club. Commonwealth is from like old England, right? Oldie time with an E in it. F you and your Commonwealth. And then you're going to have a club about it. So let's talk about exclusivity. I'll bet you everybody in that room is like whatever. I bet you they're all very similar people. An innovation lab at the Commonwealth Club. And she's sitting there on this big expensive ass chair. And there's like a coffee table with mason jars with coffee handles on them. Like if they're coffee mugs, but they're also mason jars. So they're a little bit country. And then her book is sitting there because you want to buy her book. She's about to talk to some chick. She's got a clipboard and a mic coming out of her ear. I'm too busy to put on a regular set of headphones, or my hair's too fancy to put on a regular set of headphones. Very 9mm-ish. Very 9mm-ish. They got a big screen behind them that says Inforum, and an innovation, lab at the Commonwealth Club. So there you go. Anyway, I'm about to watch that. Whenever this is over, I'm going to listen to Shannon Watts talk about how she used Monsanto tactics to get rid of guns. Anyway, so I don't want to try to kill too many of those consequentialism ones, but he had 7 of them there, right? And then he had another one, the you don't need a gun. What would you call that? Like the argument, I guess, the you don't need a gun argument. And he has 10, I think he said actually 8 and then 2 halves responses to the you don't need a gun. And I thought that was a pretty neat approach. So I don't know if that's going to be a series he's doing. Sounds like he's got a couple of things in mind to do. It's like kind of series or ways to approach, get information out there so that people can talk about it. But so far, that's 2 of them. It's got 560 something views on the first one, which is pretty decent for a week-old video. That's more than I'll get on views on a video in a week in a long time. So I think that's an indication of how many people are watching them off of the Reddit. So I don't know if there's Reddit stars or like that kind of thing. He's got 37 comments, though, on a 6-minute video where he basically gives 10 of these like responses to the you don't need a gun thing. And then all kinds of comments. Right, that's not a big yawn. But like I said, I don't know. That seems like a lot of people coming over from Reddit. So I like the idea of having an actual conversation, right? So we'll be chatting more with Walt and stuff. I've got a couple ideas. We chatted for like 5 hours the other night. I was thinking about taking that and chopping it up. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do that. So, shit, I guess maybe I could listen to it in pieces and then do some sort of thing. I probably could just look at the recording, right? And it'll say like 2 minutes in or something. I can try to write that down somewhere and try to tag where the good parts would be and then take those good parts and stick them over as separate videos so nobody has to listen to the whole 5-hour craziness. Maybe pick out some good parts out of that. So do something like that. Otherwise, we'll just have some new conversations going forward. And sounds like we'll try to get one going with Mike Sedini from Walk the Talk America. We can do that as part of the 2A patch batch once it's running to get the word out about Walk the Talk America and the concept of addressing suicides with firearms as a giant percentage of firearms deaths and an effort to work towards limiting the appetite, I guess, for anti-gun legislation from the gun prohibitionists if we appease their thirst by helping to reduce, if possible. Where do I find the Reddit stuff? I can't tell you. I should be able to tell you, but I don't know Reddit. I just passed Reddit by years ago, so I'm going to be relearning it here. But as when he was leaving, as I told him, hopefully he'll go. Well, it sounds like he's down with going live. We'll do a couple of 2E Media workshops where we dig into Reddit a little bit, and at that point, I'll have links for you. The only thing he gave me, I'll email you the link. I was going to say I don't think I want to put the link. I don't know how it works with Reddit. Did I get a private link or did I get like a link to just a video or something? I don't know how it works over there. So I'll just email you the link that he sent me. All right. Well, that time I didn't even have a chance to mute. So I guess I'm leaving. Yes. Got 13 people. If anybody wants to see anything on the way out, let me know. Otherwise, that was another good one. So this was episode 11111. This was the day the donuts were invented. I didn't get to eat a donut because I didn't go out today. But we did send out a shit ton of shit today. Today's Monday, so now I guess I sewed those patches Saturday night. Seems like I sewed them forever ago. And then got those packaged up with everybody that purchased stuff last week from the store. Holy crap, I'm getting tired. Last week from the store, got the Biden joke patches. And I noticed the other day that they changed the logo to Biden spelled out instead of Joe, because it was just J-O-E. All you had to do was move the E over, take the J, chop it, the straight part of the J off, turn that into 3 or 4 pieces and make that into a K. And now you had the word joke, and you had the same font and the same colors. You didn't have to do nothing. You could do it in basic editing software. And, you could turn his stupid campaign from Joe to joke in like 3 steps. It literally took longer to talk about it than it takes to actually do it. So I thought that was hilarious. And then I did something the other day and I saw a Biden ad come up and now it says Biden, all spelled out. So I think they figured out real quick that was a dumbass move. Plus, who the hell's Joe? Like Joe's the super common 3-letter name, right? Like just totally vague. Be like, vote for Bob. Sorry, Bob, if you're out there. Nobody's gonna vote for you. Right on, because I have a Reddit. Right on. And let's see what else was there. Did you get when did I send those? Did you get those yet? I didn't check to see. Actually, everything's shipped. Like whenever I looked earlier, everything was arrived or whatever. So, do you have those ready? I can't remember when I sent them. I sent them last week. Anyhow, ended up, I think I finished the NAA book or the mini revolver book. Got to figure out how to fill some colors up and I'll print it in color. And of course, some editing, just somebody else editing. I mean, I've looked at it enough. I need somebody else to look at it. And then whatever it tweaks. And then I got to figure out how to get it printed. So I want to thank the Patreons out there that have given us time to do that. And I guess with that, we'll wrap it up, even though there's 13 people watching. It would have been cool to end this 1 minute and 20-something seconds ago, because that would have been ending the 1111 show at the 2222 mark. But that would have been kind of doubly cool in a way. Garrett's saying he got them. Right on. So, yeah, hope you enjoy them. They gave me all that business, like back and forth, about the white line down the side. Like, oh, we can't. Oh, we need new art. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the last one, I didn't send you new art, and they look fine. And they're like, oh, there's a big white line down the side. I'm like, well, what the hell they do differently? Like, I'm reordering. So do whatever the hell they did last time. And they put notes in there. So anyway, they gave me back and forth, and I'm like, just do the line, right? There's no line on there. Is there a line on there? So, I mean, I'm just looking from the outside, but I don't know what they're talking about. I thought they meant the color was going to end or something and there'd be like a white line. But Garrett grabbed a set of one of the 2A history projects that we did last year. You know what? Oh, wait. There might not ever be another one. I can reprint it, I guess, but I don't think I can ever edit it. I don't know if that might have got lost. Shit, that's a lot of work. I hope that one didn't get lost. Dang, now I want to go look and see if I got that one. And I lost a lot of stuff in the hard drive crash in 19. Or no, I guess it was the hard drive crash in 20. Dang, that happened to me this year. I didn't even think about it. It was all same year as all this other weird shit. Anyway, I think I might have lost the originals of that, which was, I don't know, think about how much work that was. All right, well, so with that, I guess we'll end it. Thanks again for everybody, the 12 people that are watching. And for some reason, a whole bunch of people super chatted tonight. So definitely appreciate that. I got hiccups. We'll be back same time. Mañana. Oh, dang. I had something else in Spanish I could say, but now I don't have it in front of me. So, I know what to do in whatever. So, thanks everybody for showing up. We will be back to pick up later.